Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Claires and Chris's throughout the entire world, my name is Kimball Justice and I'm here with a teeny little video on the death of one of Britain's foremost gaming companies, Signosis. And a second, because I just got to load up something real quick. Yes, what we're doing here is we're loading up something on a ZX Spectrum. Well, a ZX Spectrum emulator. Clive, to be precise. Just because I have something quite small to show you, but I wanted to take a teeny little bit of time to share some Signosis memories. Now, I could have picked various games to talk about. Obviously, in the wake of Signosis' demise, a lot of people were talking about Wipeout. Well, I was never a huge fan of Wipeout. I tended to prefer Roll Cage myself. But my main memories of Signosis and that grimacing owl they always used to put on their games, well, it would all have to go back to the era of this machine here, the Spectrum, and the Amiga. And if one game really defined them at that time, yes, I suppose this would be the one, really, wouldn't it? Shadow of the Beast. Shadow of the Beast. Interesting game these days. Not the best remembered game. Really, its time in the spotlight was very fleeting. It came out in 1989, was revered for its graphical style, not so revered for its gameplay, and a couple of years the graphics had lost its sheen, and the gameplay was all that really remained, and on its re-release in 1991 I noticed, magazines pilloried it. But my own personal memories of Shadow of the Beast go back to about 1990. And as I've mentioned a lot, I was a Spectrum kid. I started on a Spectrum in about... My parents bought me one because I was kind of a precocious little shit as a kid. They thought me like, oh, I'm a brilliant, intelligent child or whatever. You know, nonsense like that. So I got a Spectrum quite early when I was about 4. And I used to get all the magazines. I used to get the Your Sinclair, the Crash, the Sinclair User, get all the tapes on them. And that was the first memory I had of this game, Shadow of the Beast. It came on, I looked it up, so this isn't just out of the back of my brilliant memory. Your Sinclair issue 60 4-pack tape, which also included Sweevo's World. Fact fans. But it also included this particular exact bit of code. A demo for Shadow of the Beast. Not even a demo you could play, a roll-in demo. And I watched this demo, which we will see shortly when it loads, and it blew my mind. People often talked when Shadow of the Beast originally came out in 1989, how the game blew their mind because it just looked like nothing else and people thought, wow, you know, this is something that will sell the Amiga because, well, what was its competition? The C64, the NES Master System, they just couldn't compete. As soon as that image came up, the image of the Beast with his fist jutting out, that image was just like, what on earth's that? I mean, especially when, you know, I was a 4 or 5 year old kid at the time, I didn't know anything about Shadow of the Beast's influences. I mean, I couldn't say then, as I could now, say that it was basically Roger Dean's Yes progressive rock record covers the video game. So yes, I specifically wanted to do a video on Shadow of the Beast. A little tiny video showcasing this demo. I mean, there were other games I could talk about. Obviously, I could have talked about Lemmings, another classic game published by Psygnosis, a very uniquely British game where you have to save people from their death, they're too depressed, whatever. Could have talked about G-Police, one of my favourite games on the PlayStation. Quite underrated game, very confusing, as quite some of their games are. I mean, who remembers Or Die Trying? I mean, that was published by Signosis. A very weird action RPG puzzle group strategy hybrid that I remember went in a couple of times from Blockbusters and just been like, eh? You know, it was hard to get it at all. I have to say, this is probably the first time I've seen a Spectrum loading screen in years. I mean, we use emulators nowadays, we don't have time for this. We just hit the maximum speed option and it just goes whoosh and gone. We don't have to bother with all this tape noise. The tape noise that we used to stick through, you youngsters don't have any of this now, do you? Well, this is what we had when we were children. This is what we had to put up with. We had to put up with it. We don't have nostalgia for this, not really. Most of the time when this was going on, we were doing something else. If ever you see someone talking about the ZX Spectrum on a nostalgia program or whatever, saying, oh well, we played some of these games so much, we actually used to remember these tape noises, we'd know exactly where they went. We didn't. We just went off and played with a ball for 5 minutes while the game was loading up. It's finished. We have some text here which I will not read out. We do have some lovely music. I mean, the soundtrack for Shadow of the Beast is justifiably famous. David Whittaker's Amiga soundtrack, very new wavy, or new agey rather, I meant to say. Very Enigma. And also I notice here that, looking at this screen, that this conversion was done by Gremlin Graphics, another 90s computer name from the UK, and another name that's long dead. Makers of Monty Mole. And, did they make Saw? I think they might have made Saw. I'm not sure about that one. They're almost all going now. I mean, I know Signosis hadn't really been Signosis for quite some time. They'd basically just been busy making Wipeout games for Sony for a number of years, but still, when they closed, it's still another part of gaming history that's gone, and it's something that, well, we don't really document. Gaming history and gaming companies aren't something we in the UK, or I imagine this is true for a lot of other places in the world, it's not something we're proud of, is it? It's not something we actually decide to document, to make notes, to celebrate. That's a shame. Perhaps that has to do with gaming being a new art form. It's not me that's keeping this text on the screen for so long, by the way. This is what it was like. I have no control over this bit at all. So, you know, I'm sorry if you've already read it cover to cover 3 times, but I do believe it's just finishing. And now I'm just going to sit back and let the demo play. So I won't say anything. Not very good at this, is he? Almost. Had the right idea. 10 out of 10 for effort. I think what you people need to understand about gaming design at its core is no matter how fancy your game looks, at its core it's a game about punching people. There, I said it. That's the first wall. And that's the end of the rolling demo. And that was it. And that was what I just sat and watched when I was about 5 years old in 1990, when that appeared on a Your Sinclair cover tape. Probably I haven't seen it in 20 odd years. And that amazed me. That really did. When I was 5 years old, weaned on Spectrum games like, you know, Death Chase, whatever, Hadn't seen anything like that. And I remember begging and pleading with my parents, must get Shadow of the Beast as soon as it came out. And I remember watching that demo over and over again, thinking maybe this time it'll let me get past that eyeball. Or maybe this time it'll just stop and look at me and say, you know, what are you waiting for? Get on the game. Get controlling it. You get punching these spiders and eyes and whatnot. It was a beautiful thing. I mean, yes, it's all yellow now, and those graphics aren't anything compared to the Amiga games. But still, that really takes me back. And I did end up getting Shadow of the Beast. Came on about 500 cassette tapes, if I recall. But despite that, I ended up enjoying it just fine back then. I mean, the game does not have a very good reputation today. It hasn't had a good reputation for about 20 years. Amiga magazines that praised it when it was originally released were coming in to give it a massive bollocking when it was re-released a couple of years later. But still, that game's very special to me. Because that was perhaps the first time you saw an other thing. I mean, if something like Shadow of the Beast, with the way it looked and the sparseness of it, came out today, it might even be one of those games as art games that people like to go on about. Is this game art? Who knows? Anyway, that's about as much as I can drivel on about. There's nothing really left on the screen for me to comment about, so all that's left for me to say is, so long Signosis, thanks for all the memories, and wherever you are and whoever the hell you may be, have a good one, and take care of yourself.